the broader that we can have the steering committee, the more effective we can make the campaign.
I'll just say something. He asked if anyone wanted to be filmed. There's somebody here that hasn't asked anyone whether they want to be filmed and is filming. So could you just deal with that?
Excuse me, sir.
Ask him who he is and why he's filming.
I can do that. We, at the beginning of the meeting, explained who was filming, why they were filming, and how it was going to be used. Would you like to say the same thing about what you're doing, why you're filming, who you are, and what it's going to be used for?
Yeah, I just come to these events just to film them, just to see what's going on.
Are you going to publish this at all? Ours is going to be published on YouTube.
Yeah.
And on the Brent PSC website. Can you tell us where yours is going to be published?
It's probably be on YouTube as well.
And any other website?
Ask him who he is.
He hasn't answered that. Who are you?
My name's Richard.
Yeah.
Richard who?
Well, I'd prefer to get on with the meeting.
Exactly.
I presume that...
I've been sat here quietly.
Yeah, you have.
Made a disruption, haven't done.
Yeah, okay. We know you're Richard. We don't know where it's going to appear apart from YouTube.
I promise you, I'm not going to put it anywhere that would cause you any problems whatsoever.
Okay, I'm going to carry on with the meeting because I'd much rather not have a long debate with you. But move on. Can I just say what's happening at the moment with Brent? He talked about leading... Pardon?
He hasn't got permission to film. His camera.
Well, he's only filming the speakers here, and you know, we are actually proud of what we're saying. We stand by it. So, yeah. As long as you don't film the audience, okay, that's their prerogative. In Brent, our leading light is Councillor Powney, who you all know fairly well. He's our member on the West London Waste Authority. He has been written to and invited to this meeting, along with all the other Brent councillors, for their information, so that they can get informed on the issue and ask us questions so that they know about it. We've also written to him asking him to meet a delegation of people from Brent at his surgery, but how many requests have you done, Liz? 2 or 3?
I've written to him twice. He hasn't acknowledged my email. It's definitely gone through because I'm not a great one for technology.
Right.
I have had, for example, tonight I have had apologies from other councillors, but not from James.
Not from him. Okay, well, we're going to continue trying to meet with him. If anybody is in his ward and wants to go along to his surgery and ask to speak to him, as you've got a right to about these issues, then please do so.
Which is his ward? Which one is his ward?
Kensal Green, I think.
Kensal Green, yes, it is. Yeah.
But I did write to him in his capacity as being the councillor, the Brent councillor on the West London Waste.
Yeah. So you perfectly legitimate request to make. Okay. So any questions or comments to Salim, or to any of the other speakers, because this is coming towards the end of the meeting now. Yeah.
This is the other day that I thought was interesting and relevant, and I was at the meeting of my residents and tenants association called BRAT, which is down in Kilburn, and we had someone from the recycling there who was talking about, you know, the new recycling scheme, and I think she was quite high up. Obviously, she'd been involved in the contracts and that, and someone in the audience brought up about Veolia, and she actually said, and I think it was genuine, she didn't know anything about it, and she was going to look into it, but what struck me is that maybe there should be some work done not just with council members but council officials, because obviously to the end they're all working together, and she seemed, you know, from the way she was dealing with the meeting, you know, fairly strategic in the recycling department. So I'm not saying she's going to influence things, but if people within that department don't know that there's a campaign and they're, you know, working with Veolia, it just a thought.
Councillor Reg Colwell said that he's actually forwarded it to the department.
Okay.
Anything else? Yes. Yeah.
Crying with the indulgence of the chair, that the gentleman, speaker from VDS, one of the sanctions would be very, very effective but almost unachievable, is to hit the Israeli state with their diamond business. They're involved in diamonds to the tune of £1 billion a year, you know, big stuff. And I know it's about Viola today, but I just want to run this past people here quickly. I've been in touch with the Republic of Ireland's branch of PSC, and they're very involved. Once these diamonds, and they, of course, diamonds come from some pretty terrible places. Zimbabwe, where people are treated like animals and brutalised and shot and killed to get these diamonds out, and of course in other countries. These diamonds end up in Tel Aviv, and they're then processed. Once they're processed, they can never be identified again. But I just want to say that those diamonds, before they get to Tel Aviv and they get processed, if there's some way we can put an embargo on them or sanction them, then it would hit the pockets of the Israeli state big time. Thank you.
Okay, shall I go straight to that because it's quite a specific question.
Sure. So the Palestinian Boycott National Committee has commissioned a leading legal expert called Yasmin Gaddo to look at the issue of diamonds, especially in the context of the Kimberley process, which is the voluntary tracing mechanism of the diamond industry designed to prevent conflict diamonds from entering the supply chain. Now, the Kimberley process defines diamonds, blood diamonds, as diamonds that are used to fund violations of human rights by non-state actors against legitimate governments. And the Kimberley process only looks at uncut diamonds. So because Israel's human rights abuses are being committed by a state, and because Israel polishes uncut diamonds rather than trades in uncut diamonds, the Kimberley process doesn't apply. And we've been doing some work, but some work to sort of lobby the Kimberley process. In terms of where we go next with the campaign, I think we're sort of stuck at a point where we're working out what we can do next, and there's two difficulties really. Firstly, that there's the problems within the Kimberley process itself. That's not going to budge. That's the lunatics running the asylum. We're not going to get the diamond industry to budge. Diamond retailers don't know where their diamonds come from. All they know is that they've got a Kimberley process certificate. So it's impossible for me as a consumer or a diamond retailer to know whether or not they're buying and selling Israeli diamonds. The third point is the ethical question. There's no such thing as an ethical diamond. Even those diamonds which are, the Canadian diamond industry is very proud to, and boasts that it's ethical. But if you go and speak to the indigenous First Nation people in Canada, they'll tell you a completely different story. So it's hard. We need to work out how we frame the campaign so that we're not just encouraging people to use a different type of unethical diamond. And I think the way in which we move forward with the campaign is the way it's been moved forward in the US, which is we look at the activities of the companies producing and buying and selling diamonds. So for example, one of the biggest Israeli diamond traders is a businessman called Lev Levayev, who has a diamond store in Bond Street, and uses the funds from his diamond business as capital to invest in his settlement construction projects in the occupied West Bank. So we've been doing other things, as well as calling for a boycott of his diamonds. We've been shaming celebrities when they're caught, wearing Lev Levayev diamonds as part of a sponsorship deal, and we shamed the UN into giving back some money to Lev Levayev that he very publicly donated to him. So I think, yes, there are some issues there, and it's a great way of campaigning on the issue of Palestine, but we have to be strategic about the way in which we approach it.
Yeah. Any other contributions? Yes.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of the meeting, but from what I understand about this Freedom Riders on the buses in Jerusalem, it's not just a question of discrimination as to, like in the American sense, but they were actually arrested trying to get into East Jerusalem, because in fact this link up between the settlements around Jerusalem is not just linking the settlements with Jerusalem, it's acting as a cordon to keep the Palestinians out of their own capital city. That is officially against the policy of the British government, which hasn't recognised Israeli annexation of East Jerusalem, but we know that sometimes they've got one policy on one page and another somewhere else. But I mean, so I mean, I think, you know, in that respect, this company is acting as one of the obstacles to any peace agreements in that area by helping the separation of East Jerusalem, which is also being ethnically cleansed by evictions and so forth. But the other point I wanted to make is it's amazing how big Veolia is in some things that it's doing. I mean, it's also doing water supply in a lot of places. And the other week, a couple of us were up at Watford in an industrial tribunal case of a man who was sacked by London Sovereign buses. And I don't think he'll, you know, the way he's been treated by the company, I don't think he'd be fit to return to work, even if they might be bent on getting his job back. But I didn't realise at all, London Sovereign is owned by Transdev. They apparently pay their drivers the lowest rate of any employed in London. It's one of the effects of breaking up transport now. Transdev is now part of Veolia, so Veolia Transport Division, so that's another thing that we'll
tentacles go.
Yeah, sorry to come in again, but on this point of, you know, the fact that boycotts and BDS is part of civil society's response to the fact that governments refuse to sanction Israel. And, you know, sort of you get statements by the Prime Minister, by all the ministers saying, you know, we're totally against boycotts. And in fact, last week, Ed Miliband was at a Labour Friends of Israel meeting, and he said he was absolutely, would stand by Israel in the good times and the bad times, and he was totally against boycotts. Now, what should our response be to government? Because we should sort of get some feedback to government that what they're doing is actually breaking international law in not taking sanctions, you know, where they, you know, so just if you could touch on that point.
We can sit here and have a rage about Ed Miliband, Labour Friends of Israel, what governments will do, what they won't do. I think where we get to after 63 years of occupation is what is it that we as citizens can and should do? And boycott is hugely effective. You know, if we go back to the 70s, everyone remembers the slogan, Nestle kills babies. That wasn't a government that started that. That was ordinary citizens who decided that what Nestle was doing by selling, you know, by asking mothers not to give mother's milk and instead use Nestle products and contaminated water was hugely morally irresponsible, at least. And people still remember Nestle kills babies, and that didn't, you know, that did immense damage to Nestle. Barclays during the anti-apartheid campaign, Barclays lost a whole generation of students. So I take your point. I would love it if the government would do something, but I can't wait.
The point I'm making is that, for instance, with the academic boycott, you know, with the UCU, they're, you know, trying to take legal action to try and say that boycotts are illegal. You know, people like Anthony Julius of Mishkon Deraya, you know, try to use this threat. And the Americans, for instance, the USA, it's illegal to actually boycott Israel. And even with the UNESCO thing, you know, it's against Congress's, you know, edicts that anything that is against American, you know, views on whether Palestine should be allowed into UNESCO, it forces them to remove, you know, to take away their grants to UNESCO, you know, to their contributions. I mean, there's sort of legal aspects here that have to be kind of, you know, looked at.
Yeah. I want to bring the meeting towards an end now because we're going to finish at 8:30 and it's 8:45 now. Neil, did you want to say something about activities of the Brent PSC this Saturday?
That's right. Saturday there's a presence. There will be a presence outside Tesco's in Harlesden, and what we're seeking is people that will come down and hand out leaflets because we're putting pressure on Tesco's the best we can because they're the worst offenders when it comes to importing food, agricultural grown on the in occupied Palestine, and Sainsbury's do it, but you know, given that Tesco's are a big outfit, even allow for that. They import huge amounts, and it's sold. People don't notice. I nearly bought a packet of potatoes from Israel the other day, and it was just tiny fit in this plastic bag. But essentially, we're looking for people to step forward.
And what time at Tesco's in Harleston?
In Harleston.
What time?
We haven't actually decided that, but it'll probably be around lunchtime, and it won't be for maybe an hour and a half. And we're seeking that people give their names to me when they leave.
Okay.
And then turn up on the day and leaflet and put a bit of pressure on Tesco's.
Okay, and Lindsay's our secretary. Would like to stand up? There's also a parliamentary lobby going on, isn't there?
Yes, the parliamentary lobby's on tomorrow, but at the moment Sarah Tether has postponed her meeting until an indefinite time. She was going to meet us on Friday, but she now has to go in and vote in Parliament. A couple of people have already met Barry Gardner, but I'm sure he'd love to be lobbied by other people. Glenda Jackson, we're still waiting for an appointment for her. And then there's Gareth Thomas and Bob Blackman. Bob Blackman.
Oh, and Harrow, yeah.
Yes, is there anyone here from Harrow East? Because I'm going to be seeing Bob Blackman.
It'd be good if any Harrow people could get together with Abe, because we need more people from Harrow getting involved.
Okay. Thank you very much. So it's left to me then to ask people on the way out. Contributions to the rental of the room would be very welcome, and to the campaign. But to thank our speakers for a very calm, rational, well-argued evening.
Here we are.